Hello, and we are going to do yet another lecture on Aristotle. Last time we had worked our way through the excerpt from this book that was on book 2 of the Nicomachean Ethics. There's a little bit in here from book 3. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to read that. It's only a couple of pages, but we're going to turn our attention in the lecture away from what's excerpted in here, and we are going to discuss a little bit more from the whole. There it is, the whole text. This is the edition of the whole text, plus some interpretive essays and stuff. And you can see I've got some markers here. There's some things that we want to discuss that's not covered in the textbook, but that we will cover here in our lecture. And the first of these is I kind of want to give you a sense of how a bulk of this book is organized. So we had in book 1, Aristotle really narrowed our focus. And then in book 2, he told us that virtue is a mean between two vices of excess and defect. And he kind of pointed out a little bit how that works, but then there's a lot of the text in the whole book where he works out the specifics of that in accordance with specific examples. And I want to look at one of those today. This is from book 3, but I do not believe this is the part of book 3 that's excerpted in our textbook. But I want to give you an idea of, how he works through a lot of these kind of more concrete examples. And so we're in book 3, chapter 10, right? And this is starting with section 2 here. So he starts book 3, chapter 10, and it's about temperance, right? And he says, let us discuss temperance next, for bravery and temperance seem to be the virtues of the non-rational parts, right? Temperance, then, is a mean concerned with pleasures, as we have already said, for it is concerned less and in different ways with pains. Intemperance appears in this same area too. Let us then now distinguish the specific pleasures that concern them. So he's looking at this virtue of temperance, and he had a discussion of bravery earlier, where he identified bravery as the mean between cowardice and like rashness or something like that. Cowardice, and then the people who start fights. There's the bravery that's the mean in between there, and the main motivator there was fear, right? So fear of death, and he really equates bravery to bravery in war, where you're putting your life on the line. But you have to do it for the right cause, and you have to be thoughtful about it. But in this section, he's discussing temperance, which I had defined earlier in the previous lecture for you as moderation in bodily pleasures. Right, so he starts, and he says, first, let us distinguish then pleasures of soul from those of the body. Love of honor and of learning, for instance, are among the pleasures of the soul. For though a lover of one, a lover of one of these enjoys it, only his thought, not his body, is at all affected, right? Those concerned with such pleasures are called neither temperate nor intemperate, right? So it's not, he's narrowing his focus, and he's telling us that it really is about pleasures of the body, right? Not pleasures of the mind. Pleasures of the mind are treated under kind of different topics. Then in section 3 here, excuse me, he says, temperance then will be about bodily pleasures, but not even about all of these. For those who find enjoyment in objects of sight, such as colors, shapes, painting, etc., are called neither temperate nor intemperate, even though it would seem to be possible to enjoy these either rightly or excessively and deficiently. The same is true of hearing, for no one is ever called temperate for excessive enjoyment of songs or play acting, or or temperate for the right enjoyment of them. So he's narrowing his focus, and this is really an important part of what Aristotle does. Is he goes out, he looks into the world, and he sees what's there. Many people call Aristotle an early scientist, and certainly he Um, he did advance the sciences. He looked at what he found in the world and then reasoned about it. So temperance concerns not pleasures of the mind, but pleasures of the body, and not all of the pleasures of the body. So he would not call people intemperate who went and go look at too much art, for example. Um, but it is interesting because I wonder, because he didn't include pleasures of sight and hearing in this, if he would changed his mind given our society, right? We have a lot of people in our society who really might be called intemperate, right? They might be addicted to watching too many YouTube videos or addicted to TikTok or something like that. And those are pleasures of sight and sound. And I think that technology can bring those to us in a way that wasn't possible during the time of Aristotle. So he's focused on other things, right? He does want to say that it is also not said about someone enjoying smells, except coincidentally, right? For someone is called intemperate not for enjoying the smell of apples or roses or incense, but rather for enjoying the smell of perfumes or cooked delicacies. And again, that's when it's going to be connected with the immoderation um, of eating, right? Um, but let's go on, right? Um, he goes on and narrows his focus this way, and then he starts talking about temperance itself. What is he concerned with? And this is in section 11. There he says, some appetites seem to be shared by everyone, while others seem to be additions that are distinctive of different people. The appetite for nourishment, for instance, is natural, since everyone who lacks nourishment, dry or liquid, has an appetite for it, sometimes for both. And as Homer says, the young in their prime all have an appetite for sex. Not everyone, however, has an appetite for a specific sort of food or drink or sex, or for the same things. That is why an appetite of this type seems to be distinctive of each of us. Still, this also includes a natural element, since different sorts of people find different sorts of things pleasanter, and there are some things that are pleasanter for everyone than those things chosen at random. Right? So he's focusing in, and really what he's going to eventually get to is that we find that there's variation in people, and that all of these appetites can be ordered towards good. The appetite for food, example, is ordered towards human nourishment. It is essential, right? And so you can see how he's going to get there, that your appetite for food has to be temperate. It has to be in the right way. Um, and then it is to your good. But if you have too little of an appetite, right, that's a deficiency, because it's going to negatively impact your nourishment and therefore your possibility for eudaimonia. And if you have too much of an appetite for food, it's going to negatively impact your health, right? We can see that. This is kind of an easier one to see, and that's why I like to talk about it, right? Um, He goes on, and this is chapter 11, section 3. He says, in natural appetites, few people are in error, and only in one direction towards excess. Eating indiscriminately or drinking until we are too full is exceeding the quantity that accords with nature. For the object of natural appetite is the filling of a lack. That is why these people are called gluttons, showing that they glut their bellies past what is right. That is how especially slavish people turn out. With the pleasures that are distinctive of different type of people, many make errors, and in many ways, for people are called lovers of something if they enjoy the wrong things, or if they enjoy something the wrong way. And in all of these ways, intemperate people go to excess. For some of the things they enjoy are hateful and hence wrong, distinctive pleasures that it is right to enjoy, they enjoy more than is right, and more than most people enjoy them. Right? So he's giving us the vice of excess first, because that's the easier one to see, and that's the one that's most common. right? So we have these natural appetites, and they are ordered towards our good. And if we satisfy the natural appetites in the moderate way, it is to our good. But if we are excessive about them, that's when we are a glutton, and that is when we really are blameworthy or unvirtuous, right? Unvirtuous. Okay. And then he goes on, and this would be in later in chapter 11, right, section 7. He says, people who are deficient in pleasures and enjoy them less than is right are not found very much, right? So people who are deficient in pleasures are not found very much. So he's conceding that, but it's still going to fit his model of what the virtue looks like. He says, for this sort of insensibility is not human. So you see that the person who is deficient in pleasure is being almost cast out of the species, right? He says, indeed, even the other animals discriminate among foods, enjoying some but not others. If someone finds nothing pleasant or preferable to anything else, he is far from being human. The reason he has no name is that he has not found much, right? So we don't find these people very often, but actually we do have names for them now, and not really names of vices, but we have for the seriously intemperate person who has a defect there. We have names for people who suffer illnesses, right? So this is such a rare thing that it's considered not a character flaw, but really is understood as an illness. And so we can think of people who have like anorexia and don't eat anything, and their health suffers because of that, as people who occupy this other space. And so temperance, then, the virtue of the right amount of pleasure, the moderate pleasure in like food and drink and sexuality, is the thing that is the virtue. And so this is how he works it out. Not only for this virtue, but for many others. He talks about bravery, he talks about generosity, he's going to talk about magnanimity, and many, many other things. The next thing that I want to talk about, and this is probably the last topic that we're going to talk about with Aristotle, and so this will be the last lecture on Aristotle, is another thing that's not in your book. It's actually covered in book 8 of the Nicomachean Ethics, and you have excerpts from books 1, 2, and 3. And that is the question of friendship. And so Aristotle was one of the first philosophers who talked about friendship at length. And I think that this is important. He was a man who recognized the importance of friendship for human flourishing. And so let's look at some of what he has to say. So he starts book 8, and he says, after this, the next topic is friendship, for it is a virtue or involves virtue. And further, it is most necessary for our life, for no one would choose to live without friends, even if he had all the other goods. Indeed, rich people and holders of powerful positions, even more than other people, seem to need friends. For how would one benefit from such prosperity if one had no opportunity for beneficence, which is most often displayed and most highly praised in relation to friends? And how would one guard and protect prosperity without friends, when it is all the more precarious the greater it is? But in poverty also, and in other types of misfortune, people think friends are the only refuge. Right? Moreover, the young need friends to keep them from error. The old need friends to care for them and support the actions that they fail because of weakness. And those in their prime need friends to do fine actions, for when two go together, they are more capable of understanding and acting. Right? So he's going to justify friendship. And why is it a virtue, or why is it connected to virtue? Well, because it's necessary for human happiness and for human flourishing. And what is the goal of virtuous activity? The goal of virtuous activity is eudaimonia, the achievement of blessed happiness. And why is that important? Well, because when we have everybody who is blessedly happy and acting in a virtuous way, then we have a good political arrangement where people have succeeded in living well with one another. That's why this is important. And he goes on and he gives some more reasons, right? He says, further, a parent would seem to have a natural friendship for a child, and the child for a parent, not only among human beings, but also among birds and most kinds of animals, right? So this is a natural thing. He says, moreover, friendship would seem to hold cities together, and legislators would seem to be more concerned about it than about justice, right? For concord would seem to be very similar to friendship, and they aim at concord among all, while they try above all to expel civil conflict, which is enmity. Right? Friendship is not only necessary, but also fine. For we praise lovers of friends, and having made many friends seems to be a fine thing. Moreover, people think that the same people are good and also friends. Right? So friendship is this good thing that leads to human flourishing. And like the early scientist that he was, he looks out into the community and he sees what other people call good. In some ways, he's a social scientist, and then he's going to reason about that. Right? And so he's going to give us, he's going to outline 3 different types of friendships. He says that there are 3 different types, right? And this is chapter 3 of book 8. He says, friendship has 3 species corresponding to 3 objects of love. For to each object of love corresponds a type of mutual loving compared with the awareness of it. Right? So there are 3 types of friendship compared with the different types of love. Okay. He says, but those who love each other wish goods to each other in respect in which they love each other. Those who love each other for utility love the other not in his own right, but insofar as they gain some good for themselves from him. The same is true of those who love for pleasure, for they like a witty person not because of his character, but because he is pleasant to themselves. So here he's outlined already 2 of the types of friendship. So the first type of friendship is a utility friendship. And that is the type of friendship that you have where you love not the other person so much as you love the things that the other person is able to do for you. Right? And it's important when we talk about this that Aristotle believes that all 3 of the types of friendships are good, but that they're different, and that there's a hierarchy of goods, that some goods are better than other goods, right? Because remember that desiring good things is kind of how the universe works. We desire good things. So one good that we can desire is utility. And so the utility friend is somebody whom you love because of what they can do for you, or whom you're friends with because of what they can do for you. So you could think of, those friends that you feel like you can call if you have to move and they'll help you move, or those friends that you can call when something is broken. Maybe you have a friend who's a good mechanic, or maybe you have a friend, who knows how to fix the kitchen sink when it backs up. And it's not a bad thing that you have those friends. It's a good thing because they are really to mutual benefit, right? So you invite them over and they help you out. And what do? You repay them by buying pizza and beer or whatever. And you have a good time, but really at bottom, it's about utility. It's about what they can do for you. And then the one place that we have this probably more than other places would be in a social network. So you all are in college now and you're looking towards building a career. And once you get to be a senior in college, sometimes a junior, and you really start looking out there in the world, one of the pieces of advice that you're going to get is that you need to build your network. You need to build your network, because networking is how people get jobs in this economy, right? They know somebody on the inside who can kind of help them out to get, a new position. And that whole idea of networking, well, that's a utility friendship. That's a utility friendship. So that's the first type of friendship. The second type of friendship, you heard, he already had explained it, was a friendship based upon pleasure. So the example that he used was that people like to be friends with an intelligent and witty person because they enjoy hearing that conversation. And that's true. But I think for most of us, we might choose different pleasures to talk about to get really an idea of what kind of friendship we're talking about here. Utility friendships are probably what we mostly think of when we think of friendships. These are the people that you enjoy doing things with. So you might have friends that you enjoy going hiking with, or going skiing with in the wintertime, or snowshoeing or snowmobiling. You might have friends that you go camping with or ride motorcycles with, or you might have friends that you play sports with, right? That you engage in these activities that for you are pleasurable, and that pleasure is enhanced by sharing it with another person. It could be something simple, right? It could be, you like going to parties with these people, or you like hanging out. You like the same music. So a lot of times, especially when we're young and we meet new people, the way that we get to know them is we talk about what kinds of things that we enjoy. We talk about the things that we find pleasure in. And so it might be like the kind of music that you like to listen to, or what you like to do on the weekend. And this is the way that we find people that we have things in common with. And so the friendships that is based upon pleasure is a common one. And remember, it's also a good one as long as you're loving those things or finding pleasure in those things that truly are good, right? So he draws the conclusion from those two types of friendships. Is those who love for utility or pleasure then are fond of a friend because of what is good or pleasant for themselves, not insofar as the beloved is who he is, but insofar as he is useful and pleasant. Right? Hence, these friendships, as well as the friends, are coincidental. And since the beloved is loved not insofar as who he is, but insofar as he provides some good thing or pleasure. Right? And then he continues that these sorts of friendships are easily dissolved, right? When the friends do not remain similar. And that's true. So you'll find that, right now you're at a certain stage of your life where you're engaging in certain types of activities. And then as you go through your life, the types of activities that you have change, right? When you get married or have children, a lot of times you will lose one group of friends and get another one, because what really the friendship is based upon is different shared pleasures or different shared utilities between you. Okay. And then he talks in section 5. So this is book 8, chapter 3, section 5, about people like yourselves, young people. He says, the cause of friendship between young people seems to be pleasure, for their lives are guided by their feelings, and they pursue above all what is pleasant for themselves and what is at hand. But as they grow up, what they find pleasant changes too. Hence they are quick to become friends and quick to stop, for their friendship shifts with what they find pleasant, and change in such pleasure is rapid. Young people are prone to erotic passion, since this mostly accords with feelings, and it is caused by pleasure. That is why they love quickly and stop, often changing in a single day. So you can see here that, he's not only talking about friendships that are based on pleasure, but also romantic types of friendships that are based on pleasure, right? And then he gets to the third type of friendship, right? And this really is a higher type, and it involves more virtue. And this is section 6, right? He says, but complete friendship is the friendship of good people similar in virtue. For they wish goods in the same way to each other insofar as they are good, and they are good in their own right. Hence they wish goods to each other for each other's own sake. Now those who wish goods to their friend for their friend's own sake are friends most of all, for they have this attitude because the friend himself, not coincidentally. Hence people's friendships last as long as they are good, and virtue is enduring. Right? So the highest type of friendship is the one that's based upon virtue. And it's not just sharing pleasure or utility with a person, but it is involved with actually desiring the goods for another. Right? So it's one that is kind of virtuous and altruistic. Right? And he continues, he goes on, he says, each of them is both good without qualification and good for his friend, since good people are both good without qualification and advantageous for each other. They are pleasant in the same ways too, since good people are pleasant both without qualification and for each other. Right? It is reasonable that this sort of friendship is enduring, since it embraces in itself all the features that friends ought to have. For the cause of every friendship is good or pleasure, either unqualified for the lover, and every friendship corresponds to some similarity. And all the features we have mentioned are found in this friendship because of the nature of the friends themselves. So there's a completeness to this virtue-based friendship, right? It's not as common. He's going to talk about this. Is in section 8 here. It says these kinds of friendships are likely to be rare, since such people are few. Further, they also need time to grow accustomed to each other, for as the proverb said, they cannot know each other before they have shared their salt, often as it says, and they cannot accept each other or be friends until each appears lovable to the other and gains the other's confidence. Those who are quick to treat each other in friendly ways wish to be friends but are not friends, unless they are also lovable and know this. For though the wish for friendship comes quickly, friendship does not. So we have this third type of friendship that's based upon virtue that's rare. And it has to involve people who themselves are virtuous, and it has to involve desiring the good for the other person. And it's rare, and it takes time to develop. So I think probably one of the best examples that we have of this type of friendship would be from The Lord of the Rings, the friendship between Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee is this type of friendship where each of them is good and each of them desires the good thing for the other person. And that friendship we see also is long lasting. Another example of this type of friendship might be the friendship we have in Star Wars between Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. There, each of the persons had to develop in their virtue, and as they did develop in their virtue and become better persons, the friendship between the two of them also developed and became this strong sort of friendship where each then was of the assistance to the other, helping the other to grow in greater virtue over time. So these are the three types of friendship: a utility friendship, a pleasure friendship, and a virtue friendship. And they're all good, but they are very hierarchical. Utility friendships and virtue friendships are the types of friendships that are, I don't want to say selfish, but they're the type of friendships where the participants are putting their own good first, whereas the virtue friendship, the participants put the good of the other first. Okay. I think this is about all that I want to say about Aristotle. Next week, we're going to be discussing another Greek thinker named Epicurus. There will be a file on the modules online with some text from Epicurus. And then we're also going to be discussing a Roman philosopher named Epictetus. And the text for Epictetus is going to be in our textbook. There will be a quiz on Aristotle that will show up online in the modules. I think I'm going to put it there today. And that quiz, just like the quizzes last week, will be due on Saturday. If anybody has any questions about any of the material that we've discussed this week on Aristotle, please do let me know. You can certainly email me, and then if you'd like to set up a time, we can talk either over the phone or we can interact over Zoom and talk that way, and we can get through some of the questions that you might have about the class.